we go. First time on the interstate. 66, 67, all right. Oh, 68, 69. We'll take it. Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Waldo, and in this video, we're gonna do exactly what the clickbaity title said we're gonna do. We're gonna raise the top speed of this truck from around 67 miles per hour to a theoretical top speed of 93 miles per hour. Now, the main problem is that I installed a 5-speed Eaton Fuller manual transmission into this truck, and it doesn't have an overdrive. That combined with the gearing of the rear end, which is a 463, and the engine, which has a maximum speed of about 3,250 RPM, if I'm not mistaken, that results in the vehicle having a very low top speed. What's the solution? Well, I'm going to change the gearing of the rear differential from a 463 to a 331. Oh my goodness, Aspen, you jumped up. All right. While I'm at it, I'm also going to install a Torsion style limited slip differential, which will give me a lot more traction while maintaining plenty of strength for heavy towing and hauling. So this is the stuff I'm going to be installing. Over here we have the differential. This is an Eaton Detroit True Track. Here I have the ring and pinion gears. I have a master rebuild kit for the differential. This has the bearings and shims and stuff like that. And then over here is a new differential cover. Look at this. Is that not a thing of beauty? It's polished aluminum, it has a filled plug and a drain plug. That's pretty nifty because this differential, I think it has a drain interval of 15,000 miles. That's 1.5. And having a drain plug is really nice so that you don't have to pull the differential cover off in order to change the fluid. Not only that, but being made of aluminum and having fins will also help with cooling. So we start out under the truck. We're gonna remove this cover and drain the oil into a pan. Well, that's what it looks like inside. It's just a regular open differential. So the next thing I have to do is remove the axle shafts. It's pretty easy to do on this truck because it has full floating axles. So there's no C-clip or anything that I have to remove inside the differential. I can do it all from right here. First, I got to remove the wheel simulator. This thing is just being held on with RTV, so I just got to pry it off. Oh my God, this thing's on there really good. There it is. It's not the right thread size, but I bet I can still use it. Yeah, there we go. And then just be careful of your axle seal as you're pulling this out. You don't want to damage it. Now here on the front part of the differential, I have to remove this pinion nut in order to remove the pinion. This thing was probably tightened to about 500 foot-pounds of torque, and it's rusty, so this is going to be a bear to get off. Luckily, I have a 3/4 inch drive impact. I have an 1 7/8 socket, which is what I need to take this nut off. And I just got a 1/2 inch air hose, which should allow me to use this thing to its full potential. Look at that. It is smoking because it must be really hot. Yep, it's hot. Yeah, this puller is really great. Anytime you need to pull something that has holes for bolts, this thing is super heavy duty and it gets the job done. I'll put a link in the description below. So now we can remove these bearing caps. There's one over here and then there's another one on this side. It's really important to make sure that these go back in the same orientation that they came out. So not only on the same side, but also rotated in the correct direction. The reason for that is because inside of it is a precision machined surface, and if you were to mix it up, it might not be a perfect circle inside, which would mess up the bearings. I would have expected fine thread, but that's coarse thread. So at this point, the Dana Spicer service manual says to get a spreader, they have a special tool for that. It actually goes in these two holes right here and it spreads it apart a little bit, a maximum of 15 thousandths of an inch. I went ahead and ordered that tool, but it won't be here until tomorrow. So I'm gonna try to remove this without that. All it is just a little bit of friction holding it in, so I should be able to pry it out. The ring gear is now resting on the bottom here, so I might be able to just pull it out. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I got it. I think I got it. Old sock. This is the rag I used to keep the pinion from turning when I was getting the pinion nut off. And that's what the housing looks like with no differential installed. Alright, I've already played nice with this and it will not come out, so cutesy time is over. And now to complete disassembly, I just have to bang out the two pinion bearing races. There's this one right here, and then there's one all the way in the back there. There it is. Now that I have the differential disassembled, it's now time to start the tedious process of reassembly. Now, why is the process tedious? Well, the pinion gear and the ring gear have to line up perfectly to get proper engagement. And the position of both of the gears is controlled by the use of shims. Because I don't know what shims to use, I have to take my best guess, assemble everything, and then inspect it to see if it's right. Now I may get lucky and it may be acceptable on the first go, but more likely it won't be acceptable and I'll have to make some adjustments. Now what makes it tedious? Well, not only do I have to disassemble everything and then reassemble it again, but all of the shims are behind press fit bearings or press fit races. And quite frankly, disassembling those and then reassembling those is a major pain. In any case, the only way this is going to get done is by getting started on it, so let's go. You can hear the sound change there. That means that it's bottomed out, it's fully installed. Little taps. I'm gonna see if I can use the pinion to pull this race into place. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. As I tighten up the pinion nut. I think it will. It should provide pretty even pressure on it. That'll keep that in place. So we got this bearing and thrust washer. And hopefully I have enough threads exposed. Well, lovely. I'm gonna have to find something to hold this, but for now, I'll set the impact to as low as it goes and try to hold it with my hands. That feels like it might be seated. All right, so I got this nut torqued down approximately to where it needs to be, about 470 foot-pounds. So now we're going to measure the preload, and that is the amount of force that it takes to turn this. I'm going to use this beam-style torque wrench. Look at all of the adapters that I need to get this 3/4 inch drive socket to work with the 1/4 inch drive torque wrench. Pretty easy to do. All you have to do is turn it, and you read what it says. And it looks like it's about, I don't know, I'd say 18 or 19 inch-pounds. It's supposed to be 10 inch-pounds, so that's too much. What that tells me is that I'm going to need to increase the amount of shims in here. Now, I don't know if I need to change the preload shims or the positioning shims, and I won't know that until I fit the differential in the ring gear and see where the ring gear meets up with the pinion gear. Now, up next, we get to deal with the differential carrier. Now, the carrier has two conical bearings like this that help it rotate freely in the differential housing. The bearings are press fit, one here and then one here on the other side. In order for the differential carrier to fit properly in the housing, we have to install shims in between the bearings and the carrier. Unfortunately, we don't know the thickness of the shims that's required until we measure. So right now, we're going to do just that. We're going to measure. We're going to start by installing the bearings on the carrier without shims, and that way we can move it back and forth in the housing and use a dial indicator to see how much it moves. Alright, so I have the differential installed without the ring gear. That's important because we don't want the ring gear to come in contact with the pin gear and mess up this measurement. So I have the dial indicator zeroed here. When I force it over here, it reads 0. And now when I force it over to the other side, we can see it does a full rotation, and then it stops at, I really gotta force it. It stops at about 8 thousandths there, which tells me that that's 58 thousandths of an inch of play. They give you a little worksheet here, so I entered in 58 thousandths for measurement A. So the next measurement I need to take is with the ring gear installed. I'm going to be using red Loctite on these bolts. You really don't want these to come undone. Turn this thing on low to draw these up. Now that I've got this drawn up, and the ring gear is pretty much in place. Now I can torque these down to spec, or at least close enough. We're going to use the Ugga-Dugga scale here. Turn this up to full power, and I need to figure out how many Ugga-Duggas is equal to 220 foot-pounds of torque. With the ring gear installed, we got 0 that way, and then this way we have, that's about 16 actually. So we'll say 16 thousandths of an inch. All right, so we got 16 thousandths in there. C is equal to A minus B, so that's 42. And so the ring gear shim pack is going to be equal to measurement B, so that's 16 thousandths. And then the opposite side of the ring gear is going to be equal to measurement C plus 10 thousandths, so that's going to be 52 thousandths. So I've assembled this for the ring gear side, that's exactly 16 thousandths. And then these for the other side, I managed to get this to 51 thousandths, that's the closest I could get to 52, so we're going to give that a try. Now before I can install shims, I got to pull this bearing off, and I'm going to try to do it with this big ass bearing separator. I'm really hoping I can do this without damaging the bearing. I can't believe how much force this is taking. Well, that got it off. Since this is the side opposite the ring gear, we'll put the 16,000th shim pack right in there like that. And then I just gotta repress this bearing on and then reinstall it, and we'll go from there. All right, so this is that spreader that I mentioned previously, and it is surprisingly heavy. I guess you can't really see, but it's really thick steel. All right, so I have a dial indicator installed and it's centered at 0. The magnetic base is attached over here on this side. It would be ideal if I could get it right here, but there's not enough room, so I have it down here. And then we're measuring to this edge right here. So the theory is that as I tighten up this nut right here, it forces these two things apart and it spreads it out. And we're only spreading it out 15 thousandths of an inch, which is a very small amount. Well, we're up to almost 7 thousandths of an inch. I'm kind of tempted to just try it like that, because this is getting pretty hard to turn with this small wrench. I know I could get a bigger one, but just for the fun of it, I weighed this differential, and it weighs 75 pounds, actually. Makes it really awkward to install like this when you're on your side. So now with everything installed, the first thing I need to check is backlash, and that is the free play between the ring gear and the pinion gear. So I've got a dial indicator installed here, and basically I do this, and you can see that it's moving right about 5 thousandths of an inch. Now the specification for this is 5 thousandths to 8 thousandths of an inch, so this is acceptable, which is excellent news. All right, so the final test, and this is an important one, is to see where the gear teeth are contacting each other. To do that, I have this, which I think is some yellow paint. It was included with the master rebuild kit, yep. And we're gonna paint this onto these gear teeth, rotated around in both directions, and it will wipe away the paint where they're contacting each other, and that's how we'll figure it out. Now ideally we want the teeth to be contacting each other somewhere in the middle. If they're too close to the edges, then we'll have to make some changes. So let's find out. All right, so looking in the bottom, we can see that the teeth are meshing pretty close to the middle as far as this is concerned, which is good. And then if we take a look on the top, yeah, that also looks like it's pretty close to the middle. I think we can leave it like this. I think this is acceptable. Oh, and I have one last thing to clear up. I previously mentioned that the Pinion Preload here should be 10 inch-pounds, and it's actually supposed to be 20 to 40 inch-pounds. I believe I measured it at 19, so I think we're going to call that close enough. Now that the differential is installed, I can check it again just to make sure everything is good. And I'm getting, looks like about 39 inch-pounds, which is also within spec. So this is good to go. All I have to do is install the oil seal on the back here, install the diff cover, fill it up, and we're good to go. This bearing race is like just the right size to slip on here and bang this thing on. Alright, looks good to me. Just going to lubricate this seal a little bit before I throw the yoke back on. Washer, nut. Alright, well that was all this thing had to offer. As a sanity check, we'll just go ahead and check the preload again. Yeah, everything looks good. Alright, it is time to get this beautiful new cover installed. Oh yeah, and I got magnetic plugs for both the drain plug and the fill plug. Pretty neat. Those didn't come with it. I had to buy those separately. So I'll start out by getting these finger tight, let it sit for a little bit so that the RTV can tack up. I think they say to let it sit for about an hour, and then you can torque it down fully, and then they say to give it, I don't know, 24 hours before you actually fill it with fluids, but who does that? I think we're going to be taking the accelerated route for this one.
1 hour later.
So we're filling this up with 80 W90, because that's what it calls for. Ooh, excuse me. Oh, there it is. That is full. Click, click. Yeah, so let's bring this thing out for a little drive on the interstate and see how the new gearing works. By the time I finished last night, it was getting dark, but I did pull it out of the shop, and the new differential worked wonders getting me out of there. The ground here is pretty muddy right now because of all the rain that we've gotten so far, so the new differential had a chance to prove itself on the muddy ground. All right, here we go. So we can start out in second gear still, but starting out in first gear is a lot more reasonable. It's still pretty low. Yeah, the drivability with the new gear ratio is excellent. It works really well. Come on, you can do it. We're going up a little hill here. I'm not anywhere near full throttle. I'm barely touching it. I'm just trying not to exceed 65. So there we are. We're at about 65, 66, and we're a little over 2,000 RPM, maybe like under 2,200, between 2,100 and 2,200, which is pretty reasonable, I think. Yeah, this thing is capable of going on the highway now. You may have noticed the steering wheel way off. In the last video I did, it was off a little bit to one side. I actually just replaced some steering components and that were a little bit loose, and I over-corrected big time for this, so I gotta go back to the drawing board and try again. But I will get it straight. I know you guys care about that. That was a second gear start, up a slight hill. You do it no problem. So coming up next, we have some pretty interesting videos. Number one, this truck needs an alignment pretty badly, so I think I'm gonna do a DIY alignment. After that, I'm gonna do a fuel economy run in this. I really wanna know what kind of MPG a truck like this gets. And then something a little bit different for the channel, I have a bass fishing tournament coming up, and I was thinking about towing my brother's boat in this to go to the tournament and then filming a little bit of fishing, so that might be pretty cool too. In any case, thank you so much for watching, and we will catch you in the next one.